Hello, my name is Margo Arrowsmith, and I'm here to talk to you about your retirement and how to make it the best possible. What I'm going to do today is to educate you about the three most important things that you need to know when planning on where you're going to live in retirement. Number one is know yourself as you are now. Do not rely on ideas you got about your retirement when you were young. 30-year-olds see 60-year-olds as ancient, and you may at 30 have planted a seed that you will be in a home where someone's taking care of you. I know that's true because when I was 27, I worked in what would today be called an assisted living program. And I remember thinking, boy, when me and my friends are this age, we're going to run this place. But I was thinking of us as living there. Now, today I'm 75. I'm 60-year-olds are very young, so I know I wouldn't do it. But we get those ideas planted in the back of our brain. So one of the things you have to do is you have to challenge what you thought about yourself for much of your life. May not have changed, but it's worth doing. It's worth going through. Additionally, your doctor really doesn't know what you want or what's best for you either. And frankly, nor will your family or your friends, as well-meaning and caring about you as they may be. To challenge the preconceived notions, whether they're yours or whether they're others, take a little bit of time to think about what you really want in life. There are many ways to do that. Find one. It's so important. Don't just assume that one day you're going to think of, you need to retire. I have to stop that. Okay?
Okay.
Don't just assume that when the time comes to retire that you're going to know where you want to be. It's well worth the effort. It can save you a lot of money and a lot of grief. The second most important point is to look clearly at all your options. And that could be from staying home to 55 plus living to living on a cruise ship. Know as much as possible about all of these options. When you make that decision, then know what questions to ask the salespeople, what you might encounter from them, what they might not tell you, what they might tell you. Go in armed with a lot of knowledge about the category in general, and then know the questions to ask specifically to these salespeople about this specific place. And this goes, by the way, for whether you're going to stay home, because if you're going to stay home, you're likely going to need to make some adjustments to your house, or if you're going into a CCRC or any of the many, many other options. Find out all the information you can. Now, and this is so important, get everything in writing. Everything in writing. And I know that seems like common sense because don't we say that about everything? We should have it in writing. I work with people who have made a lot of money. I'm going to give you an example. I have one woman who I'm working with now. She and her husband gave several $100,000 to get into a continued care residential community. That's what a CCRC is. And at first, they just put down a small deposit, thinking, why not? Let's get on a waiting list. And then a horrible thing happened. Her husband had an event that affected his brain. It wasn't quite a hemorrhage, but it affected his brain. And now he's having problems cognitively, and they're expected to get worse. And it's really very sad. Well, when it first happened, they panicked And they didn't have the plan. They didn't have anything about this CCRC in writing. They just needed a place to live where he'd be taken care of. So they moved in. One of the things that a continued care residential community says is that we'll keep you forever. We start you out at independent living, we move you on up the road, and at the end, and it usually says when, even though most of us will never need this, it says when you need higher level nursing, you'll be here. And if your money runs out, you've given us that several $100,000, and if that runs out, we keep you. We do that. So she was scared, and he was a little scared. He wasn't as bad off as he is now. So they decided, well, let's just jump in, and they moved in. Well, now a year later, it's looking that, they gave them several $100,000. They're looking to pay, I think now they're only paying about $6,000 a month for their apartment. But if he goes into memory care, between the two of them, they're going to be paying close to 20. And they did not know this ahead of time. And what's even worse is they did not get it in writing, this promise that you're told. They didn't get it in writing that, in fact, you will be kept with us no matter what. It sounded to me like she had a lot of money. So when she and I figured it out and we did the math, it's only going to last them about 8 years. And she has no guarantee. So whether it's a CCRC, whether it's you're hiring a contractor to come in and age-proof your home so that there will be things like grab bars and all of those things that will help you be able to stay in your home, get in writing what they're going to do. And of course, everything in the middle. If you're going into 55 plus, what you need to do is make sure, if the facilities aren't finished when you move in, make sure that there's a date as to when that's going to be done by and what's going to happen if it's not done. Make sure that if it's important to you to have a place where your grandchildren can visit and go swimming, make sure you've got that in writing so the rules can't change on you. You're going to be investing a lot of time and money, no matter where you are, no matter where you're going to retire, and you want to be happy. So again, the most important things, the first one is know yourself, and know yourself as you are now, not how you thought you'd be when you were young. Find out what all the options are. I mean, thoroughly investigate all of the options. And then when you have your category that you want, thoroughly investigate each one of the places that you're going to go to. Know what questions to ask the salespeople. Know what it is that they're most likely not going to tell you, but you're going to want to ask anyway. And then third, get everything in writing. And again, I've seen too many people who should know better not do that. And now they're scared and may run out of money and not have a place to go. If you do those three things, you've got a good head start on having the best retirement possible for you. Did you guys want to ask questions now? Or do I do the other thing first?
Yeah, you can invite us in to ask questions.
And I really didn't do the interview that I wanted to do, but anyway.
Yeah, that's okay.
Should I your whole names or your first names? How should I introduce you?
No, just say it. So Betty has a question, right?
So okay. All right. So Betty, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, it really resonated with me when you said know yourself really well, because I mean that the Greek saying know thyself,
yes,
and so that's the first job, because one of the things I talk about when I do life coaching in the course of book coaching is it what you want or is it what you think you should want? And I know from experience that those are two very different things. What you think you're supposed to want it involves the wishes and the ideas of others, and what you really want, you probably have never actually told anybody else because you're scared of what they're going to say about it. So one of the great benefits of aging, I feel, is that you care less about what other people think of you, and that's one of the great blessings of aging.
Well, yes, very well said, Betty. You can care less about what other people think of you. Two things along with that, though. Number one, you have to first know what it is you really want before you can care less about what they think.
Right.
The other thing is that there's so much in our society that has kind of taught other people and your adult children that once you reach a certain age, you really don't know as much about what you want as you think you do. That other people really do need. So, partly what you're going to have to learn is to not only first what you want yourself, then to stand up for it, and then to learn how to stand up for it when talking to people like your children or your doctor who care very much for you, but have been convinced that somehow they're supposed to know better what you want than you do. But Betty, with your first question, I had the thought. It reminds me of the Rolling Stones song. You can't always get what you want. I'm not going to sing it, but you can't always get what you want. But if you try real hard, you might just get what you need. And I think one of the things they were saying is just because, as you were saying, Betty, just because we want something doesn't really mean that it's what we need, and it really isn't even always what we really wanted. We just thought it for so long. We just need to open up our minds and look a little bit before jumping.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a kind of a reset in a way, re-examining, like you said earlier, when you're, say you're 30, you have an idea. Well, this is what it's going to be like when I get to be 65, 70. Then when you're actually that age, you're like, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be like at all.
I mean, and this isn't even a joke. I mean, people make jokes. It's like, I never thought I'd get to be this age. Seriously, I mean, I'm 75 years old, and I never thought I'd be like this at 75 years old. I mean, I'm still working. I'm still doing all of these things. Never dreamed it. And now at 75, I can't think of doing anything differently. There are, however, people who retire too early because they thought that's what they were going to do. There are people who move into senior housing. Some love it, but others only did it because they thought that's what they were going to do. And they never stopped to think. So yes, that's why that is number one on my list. The others are very important. But to quote what you said, Betty, know thine self.
Right.
So do you have a process that people can go through to help to know themselves?
Well, there is a process. I mean, there's a lot of places. I mean, you can go to a therapist for, 5 years, and I've seen people for that long. In my course, your best retirement living, I actually do have a series of exercises that you can go through. And the first part is doing the exercise, and then after that, we kind of teach you how to analyze the exercises so that you can make the best. It's fun to write down, what you want in your perfect day, which is the name of the exercise. But then I teach people how to take the information that they got and really use it for their best, and really use it to help them make the decision about where they want to be.
Yeah.
Betty?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that piece of introspection and putting it out there in writing it down makes it real. Putting it out where you can see it makes it real. So that's a really valuable part of what your course offers.
Very much so. Sometimes I will tell people in my office, it's like until you get it out, even talking, sometimes it stays in your head. But when it's out, and it's like a bunch of ping pong balls, all with that action, they're hitting against each other.
Yeah.
And it can be confusing because we have so many ideas all the time that sometimes there's just too many if it keeps in our head. Putting it down on paper so that our eyes can see what we wrote down. Oh, that's it. And sometimes, by the way, when it's down on paper, you look at it and say, was I thinking that? That's kind of silly. And you might cross it off. When I have people do this, I have them write down everything, even something that might sound like really, really outlandish and silly. Like, for instance, I want to wake up and have breakfast overlooking the Atlantic Ocean on from my balcony, but I want to have dinner with friends in Paris. I mean, that's outlandish and nobody's going to be doing that. But I tell people, put it all down. because what again, it's important to see it on paper, just like you said, Betty. Then our brains can process it in a different way.
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, and since we've been talking about this and Greg asked about it, I do want to tell you about I have a course that actually covers all of these things and much more, by the way. And it's called Your Perfect Retirement Living. And you can go to yourperfectretirementliving.com and you'll see a video of me talking more if you want more of that. But there's also more information. There's as you can see in the scrolling here, there is you can go see a little bit more about what the course is about. You can just learn about the whole process. And I do want to add, by the way, that it's both a course and a community. I teach you a lot, and if all you ever do is do the exercises and go through the course, you will definitely benefit. However, if you really want to get involved with the community where you ask people questions, because for instance, one of the things that I talk about is how, let's say you decide on independent living. Well, every building or every facility that calls itself independent living, they can be very different from each other. So there's no way that anybody can cover that all in one source. One of the reasons that I did the community was so that somebody can go on and say, well, I went to this place. It was an independent community. This happened. I was a little confused. And then somebody else can say, well, I've seen something different. And of course, I will jump on and answer people's questions there too. So it's a course that you can take one time. It's also it can be a lifelong learning situation, or a place where you'll just always have a community and always have friends. One of the independent living places that I went to, the dining room had been taken over by and I'm going to say this, basically a mean girl. And the residents, went to the staff and said, do something about her, which they never did. They said they were going to. They didn't, probably because they were afraid of her too. If you had a community to go to, you could go on and say, what do we do about this? Have you had this situation in where you live? What did you do about it? So again, the purpose of the community is to really have a source to not only decide where you want to live and decide on the best place, but to also make the best of it once you're there. So again, as we can see, it's yourperfectretirementliving.com. And I look forward to seeing all of you more.